exciting webinar. I have tried to eliminate the epidemic of degenerative disease now for many years. And we all know that everything is multifactorial. And so the problem is, if we learn that we have Lyme, or we learn that we have mercury, or we learn that we have food allergy, or we start to realize that we have low levels of testosterone, any one of those can cause you to stop functioning effectively in your life. My problem is that all of them are starting to influence us today, and how can I teach everybody to approach optimal health from the same viewpoint that you would use if you were going to restore a classic 1940 Chevrolet. If you put in all new paint job and new motor, but you don't put the battery in, then nothing is still going to work. And so I have to get the point across that in this kind of medicine, you can go to one of my doctor friends and he will convince you that you have either candida or chlamydia or Lyme or some other infection. And we have other doctors that will be able to prove to you that you are seriously sensitive to one or more foods. And another doctor will make you aware that the only way we will win this fight is to get the heavy metals, the lead, the mercury out. But it's really more than that, because they have all these other toxins we don't talk about, dioxin, PCB, bisphenol A. And in addition to that, we're getting older, and the environment is getting more and more toxic, and we're losing the Earth's magnetic field. And so having a low level of anything, DHEA, testosterone, progesterone, and even estrogen or thyroid, can set the stage for you having health problems. So clearly what I call my fight program is to make everybody aware that there are all of these 7 issues to address. They are pretty obvious, and we're going to go into them in some depth. Food means which ones you're sensitive to. Focus means have you already given up, because once you give up, yeah, it's hard to help you as long as you have a positive attitude. And sometimes that means you have to surround yourself with positive people, because a negative person can make an entire family or an entire business have a negative outlook. But we need to realize that I can help you probably find that you have an infection. It's called cytomegalic virus, and Harvard says 96% of us have it, and it lives in the plaque in your veins, in arteries rather, and it helps lead to the day that we have hypertension and get our heart attacks. And with genetics, today every one of you are loaded with bisphenol A, which is a plastic hardener that is helping make our children obese and helping make you die younger, because it is adversely affecting our ability to repair our DNA through an epigenetic change that makes methylation less effective in your body. Without methylation, you can't hope to deal with the toxins. So when I do gene testing on anybody today, I always find that some of your genes are setting the stage for you being sick, because we do 92 genes for $600 and everybody fails that test. We find a gene that is not working efficiently, like the glutathione production in your body. Without it, you're going to have cancer and heart disease and diabetes, etc. So there's reasons for all these problems we have. In other words, even if everybody in your family was healthy, epigenetic means you can have a perfectly healthy family, no one ever had diabetes or autism or any cancer, and you can have all of it because of what the toxins have been doing to us. And you get this problem, who's got the heavy metals? Well, the problem in a nutshell is Harvard made it clear. The level of lead in your bone determines how soon you have your heart attack and how soon you go blind with your cataract. And everybody is born with 1,000 times too much lead in your bones, and even intravenous chelation won't take it out. So you have to learn about my lifetime detoxification program using things like high-dose C, special kinds of fiber. What I can do with zeolite is amazing, oral chelation. And when you get to the hormone list, basically, at my age 77, feeling as good as I do, I have to tell you, I am on melatonin and testosterone and DHEA and thyroid and progesterone and a safe alternative to estrogen called Herbal Remedy from Thailand. But when you get down to the toxins, if we don't sweat, we're not going to get toxins out. And if you don't have something going in your body like zeolite and some oral chelation and occasionally some exercise, because without exercise we don't move toxins, and that's why I like the pulsed electromagnetic field device, which more and more doctors will be offering this form of unique magnetically induced cellular exercise. By simply being hooked up to a machine for 10 minutes, you can get more toxins out than if you had jogged for 6 hours, because your body doesn't have the charge to make cells that are sick start pushing the toxins out. So we have this situation, everybody is aware today that more and more people are gluten sensitive, but you didn't know that if you read a good book, which I'll get into in a minute, by Dr. Hyman, you're going to learn that if you would go off of dairy and potato and all wheat for a period of 6 weeks, the level of inflammation in your body would plummet. And that would mean that whatever health problems you have today would be markedly improved because you lowered inflammation by treating a cause rather than treating it with an anti-inflammatory like Vioxx that killed so many people and gave them heart attacks and heart disease. So it's always best to treat causes. The problem with food is our food supply has been significantly altered by Monsanto, and genetically modified food is not working as well as they would pretend. And in fact, today's Wall Street Journal has actually published a paper by the pediatrics. The Pediatric Society is saying, you know what? Buying organic food really helps your kids stay healthier. They didn't go so far as to care whether the milk is organic or not because they haven't done their homework. But at least it's a major step for any organized medicine group to start to admit that you would be healthier and your kid would be healthier on organic food. So this book, which I really encourage everyone to have in your home, because Dr. Mark Hyman has done his homework. He's studied and written and published, and he's the head of the Institute for Functional Medicine. He is extremely articulate in making you understand cases of autistic children that start to talk and people with cancer that get better and heart disease because they learn the basics. And the basics are so complicated today because it's hard for you to believe. If you go on my website and you see what my personal program is, you think I'm crazy. Everybody looks and says, Dr. Gordon, you're taking 40 different bottles and you take most of them twice a day? Yeah, that's what I need. But I never felt this healthy in my 77 years, so I don't mind the cost. But I like this book because he's got President Clinton on a program very similar to what I take. And President Clinton has come back to life. This is former President Bill Clinton, who 1 year ago was extremely unhealthy. And he writes on the front of this book, he says, I hope this book inspires you, but on the back of the book, he says the epidemic of diabetes and obesity is threatening the entire global economy. That's what ex-President Clinton says on the back of the book. In other words, I'm hoping to motivate you to become as healthy as I am because the world economy can't handle the current approach that we're following with drugs, surgery, radiation, and the wrong diet and lack of air. I mean, we can't handle the costs of this kind of sickness with this outmoded medical system that is based on sickness, not on health. So we are talking today wellness. You do not have to be listening to me because you have a brain tumor. You don't have to be listening to me because you're going to have your leg cut off with some gangrene. You don't have to be listening because you think you are going to die of your colitis. What you need to be listening to me is you need to know that whatever you wish to do in your life, you need to feel good. Whether you just want to be a good basketball player or really healthy employee that isn't always sick, so you can fulfill your mission in life. So this book, please, go to Amazon, spend $20, own it, because the diet in here is going to help you, and the questionnaires will lead you without all the expensive testing I can order. And I do love to order tests because most of us don't take action until we fail my cancer screening test and know that we already have some cancer starting in our body, or we fail the new EKG we have from premierheart.com that tells you without the bother of an angiogram that you might be less than a year away from a fatal heart attack. We have sophisticated tests today that I can use that will convince you that you can't go another day without buying supplements that are expensive, like vitamin K2 and alpha-lipoic acid, and taking your fish oil and vitamin D, and the list goes on. But in order to learn it, Mark Hyman has made it more understandable because he has these quizzes in the book. So you can start to understand why you need to be taking the herbal remedy from Thailand that is the safe alternative to any estrogen substances and stops menopause for women. Or you can take this quiz and learn by simply answering the questions in the privacy of your own home that you badly need more magnesium, or you're going to need some help with your thyroid. And each of these quizzes has some suggestions that you can do for yourself. And if you're not able to solve the problem, Dr. Hyman's book suggests that members of the Institute for Functional Medicine or the members of the group I co-founded called ACAM, or the members of the group that practices environmental medicine, or the Institute for Integrative Medicine, or the American College for Integrative Medicine, ACIM. We have many groups with doctors that are available, and I have 3,500 of these enlightened health professionals who belong to my school called FACT. And I send them updates every day so that they can stay current with the late breaking news, because we are living in a time in which knowledge is doubling exponentially, probably every 2 years. So if you haven't gone to a meeting in a full year, you could be 50% wrong in what you tell somebody on any topic, including how to treat brain cancer, because we have some exciting news for everybody about cancer. And everything you've been told about using radiation, chemo, and surgery misses the target by a mile. And we're going to prove to you that not only have I had no patients die, to our knowledge, of a fatal heart attack or fatal stroke while taking the oral chelator called Beyond Chelation and Improved. It's 9 pills. Costs people about $135 a month to take it twice a day. But that has been a very effective approach. And at the same time, we had 10 years, 10,000 people in Japan we followed for 10 years, and none of them developed a lump or bump that we call cancer. Yet all of us have a little cancer all the time in our body. We have tests that tell you if you are lucky enough to keep that cancer burden low using a simple test. You go to caprofile.net, and for about $400 you can get your cancer profile. But what I'm teaching you from this quiz is without spending any money. You just spend $20 and buy the book. And you look at these quizzes and you answer the questions. And amazingly enough, doing this book, the Saddleback Church under Rick Warren in Southern California, with 20,000 members of the church, have lost 260,000 pounds, and most of them have been able to stop taking dangerous, outmoded medicine like statins, which none of us need, and most of them have gone off blood pressure medicine. So there's a purpose in my making this updated report on my FIGHT program, because we're more and more certain, absolutely, of the need for everybody approaching their health and wellness from a multifactorial viewpoint. And these quizzes will have you much more knowledgeable about why you need to be on something like DHEA or melatonin, and why you need to pay attention to getting the toxins out. So my FIGHT program will help come to life for you without spending $4,900 that it takes to send your blood to Mount Sinai School of Medicine for a test that no one has ever passed. No one can pass the test for all these toxins, dioxin, PCBs, polybrominated diphenyl ethers, and bisphenol A. No one can pass the test. I don't care if you live 100% organic, because you're still breathing the same air we all breathe, because we poisoned our earth. But I have answers to empower you to fight back and feel as good as I do so that we can solve the problems. We know we've messed things up, but that doesn't mean we can't solve it. So the diet that we're eating absolutely doesn't fit our bodies. In the simple book, The Blood Sugar Solution, will give you safe suggestions that will lower the level of inflammation in your body. And when I lower inflammation, I help stop diabetes and cancer and heart disease and Alzheimer and autism simply by following the dietary suggestions in the back of the book by Mark Hyman. So yes, we can go way beyond that. When you start to learn new things about cancer today, we will have specialized diets. And the more we do, when I start looking at gene testing, the more we can get into specifics to personalize what special supplements you may need more than other supplements. For example, we're convinced today that because of a toxin, which is in every person tested according to EPA, bisphenol A, none of us have effective methylation, which is a key step in getting toxins out. And getting toxins out has a great deal to do with how long you live, because our body has to repair itself daily. We lose many cells. But if we are methylating efficiently, which you can't do when you have very much bisphenol A, so I give people methylation support. The vitamin C that we use is unique. No other vitamin C that you can buy anywhere has trimethylglycine and methylsulfonomethane. Nobody has bothered to put into their vitamin C the essential 5-carbon sugar called ribose that helps carry the vitamin C into the cell, and nobody has a vitamin C that is documented to keep cancer patients alive longer than any other single nutrient you can go and buy. If you have patients with severe advanced cancer, all you have to do is test the level of vitamin C in the urine using the vitamin C check test that you can easily get from Longevity Plus, 20 cents a test, and find out what it takes to protect you, because vitamin C is an electron donor. And electrons can help you fight back against the toxins. I can't get all the lead out of you overnight. IV chelation doesn't take the lead out of your bone. So whatever you're doing, you're going to be stuck following something like my power drink with the zeolite and the green and the special fiber from stabilized rice bran and the oral EDTA and the total program of the higher doses of vitamin C. There's a reason I have everybody taking a side-eating teaspoon of vitamin C morning and night, which is about 4,000 milligrams of C, plus it's got MSM and trimethylglycine and ribose and essential sugars from aloe vera. It's got some magic in it, but there's a reason I go that high, because the vitamin C is a chelating agent, and as it goes out in your urine, which the 20-cent stick test called VitaCheck C doesn't measure pH, it measures how much C. And if you have a lot of C, you have a lot of electrons, and if you have a lot of electrons, you are going to live a lot longer, because electrons are reductants and they neutralize the toxins that I'm talking about. So how can you figure out which food is safe for you? Well, we have SAGE tests, and we have ALCAT, and we have ELISA Act. We have many good tests. None of them are perfect, and most of them will cost between $500 and $1,000. But I don't mind ordering them on anybody. But sometimes people get mad. They spend $1,000 and they say, you know, that test didn't find that I'm sensitive to milk, and I know I can't touch milk. Well, of course, if you haven't touched milk, some of the tests won't show it as a problem because your body has kind of quieted down. So this is a book that anybody can go and buy. It's really from a Dr. Patrick Kingsley, a friend of mine who specializes in treating multiple sclerosis. He lives in England. But this book has stories, and sometimes learning from stories will let you figure out how you could go and find out which foods are killing you without spending $1,000. So it's just something for you to learn, because we had one lady that nothing got her out of her health problem until she stopped eating carrots. But we now have these incredible DVDs that are forks over knives. We have incredible Food Inc. We have lots of ways of trying to help you walk away from the standard American diet so that you find an organic farmer and you start to be able to have food that is not killing you. Because we all know there are antibiotics in the food we eat. There's also a lot of hormones in these animals that we eat. And so it gets to the point that the more organic your diet is, the less you will need to rely on the zeolite and the essential greens, chlorella and broccoli and spirulina, that I put in my organic green, and unless you'll have to rely on the Beyond Fiber product that I have put together, because we are, all of us, dealing with a problem of increasing incidence of colon cancer. My patients won't get colon cancer if they are taking my power drink, because it's pretty clear my power drink will neutralize and tie up all the bad things, and then you have to be on a probiotic every day of your life. But we're all concerned about the epidemic of obesity. And increasingly now we have documentation, the higher level of bisphenol A in your child, the more obese your child will be. That report just came out. And we do know that we have all of this renalysis, that we have made it impossible for us to have a healthy intestinal tract, which is why I'm so keen on getting everybody to understand that I think I've come up with a pretty good approach with what I call my power drink, which is, I repeat, the use of the Beyond C, because it's the best tolerated dose of vitamin C you can buy anywhere, in that it doesn't cause upset at the stomach, even if you're taking the recommended minimum dose, which I suggest, of a teaspoon twice a day, which is 4,000 milligrams. But what's really important to understand is that we are, all of us, going to have to be taking a probiotic and something to feed the probiotic, which is the right kind of fiber. So I really put, when I call my product Beyond Fiber, it is the answer. It has artichoke and stabilized rice bran and EDTA. But I'm helping you understand that if I'm going to get the toxins out, I need to catch the toxins that are in our food before you even put them into your brain and the other cells in your body. So part of my approach is to have you understand that the gastrointestinal tract of our bodies looks very much like the picture here on the genetically modified, has big holes letting it be leaky, whereas the non-genetically modified is nice and tight. So what we have to have everybody understand is, if you don't want to be sensitive to food, because believe me, Bacillus thuringiensis, that's what BT stands for, is in all of the soy and corn and wheat that is raised using Monsanto's genetically modified seeds. So those foods tend then to really keep you sick, so that even if I get you off of one offending food, you will still become sensitive to the next food because your intestine is leaky, and we know what to do about it. You have to learn that we have to repair our intestinal tract with what I call my power drink, which is my green and my fiber and my vitamin C and my maca. So some other countries are beginning to wake up to that. Russia says, we don't want to have United States corn because we see what's going on. So they're not going to try to let anybody know that. We have them on the ballot in California. We're trying to force the food manufacturing to have to label foods as genetically modified or not, because if you knew, most of us would not be buying the genetically modified. And that would mean we'd pay extra, but the farmers would be rewarded for taking the trouble to get us organic food, and we would all be healthier. But we have this problem. We need the right kind of intestinal flora. and I can kill off some of the bad stuff in us, like the Candida and the Chlamydia and the cytomegalic virus and the Lyme thing, with my infection protocol, which relies to a large extent on the ACS 200 that actually is documented to kill Lyme. We have a silver product. You have to take a lot of it, and it gets kind of expensive, but people in great trouble with high doses of A and high doses of C and taking high doses of garlic. And for many infections, I can just take liquid kyolic and I can overcome infections, and the silver. But we have tricks that we have to do, and then we go to the doctor, and if we're not getting well, we look for doctors that do oxidative therapies with ozone and ultraviolet blood irradiation. But these symptoms that we're seeing in people, fatigue, in people that are having all of these problems of indigestion, you cannot live to your maximum intended useful lifespan if you're taking a proton pump inhibitor. Those that block the production of acid in your stomach will never get the full use of the proteins that we eat, because it's only the acid that tears apart the protein to break it into building blocks called amino acids that are non-toxic and useful to our body. But yet we have so many people living on the drugs from Tums to Pepsid and the Nexium, the purple pill, and it's difficult to get off of those. But it is possible, and the more I can help you learn to treat causes, the more we'll be able to have you not have to be continuously living on drugs that will shorten your lifespan, because they are cheating your body from the absorption of nutrients that we badly need. I was born with no stomach acid, so I had one of the lowest levels of magnesium of anybody. So by age 29, I had disabling heart trouble, and by early age, my heart was skipping 1 beat out of 3 or out of 4. I had an AV block, but it's always magnesium. But you don't absorb magnesium if you're going to not have any acid in your stomach. So for years, I was taking betaine hydrochloride capsules, 2 or 3 with every meal, the exact opposite of what everybody else was doing when they're taking their Tums, their Rolaids, and their proton pump inhibitors, because I learned early on that if I didn't rebuild my body's tissue levels, I'd have to live on intravenous magnesium, which I send patients to get Meyer cocktails all the time from my colleagues. And I repeat, we have many doctors now open to doing these in the office, and I want everybody to understand that my colleagues can offer the tests, and we can get people well quicker, better, faster. When you see some of the physician members of the various organizations that I've mentioned, like ACAM, the American College for Advancement in Medicine, and the Institute for Functional Medicine, and or look on my website for members of my forum on anti-aging and chelation therapy. Please note, there's no charge for any health professional. And there are many people today that are health professionals. They do not have to be MDs. They can be chiropractors, and they can be nutritionists. The bottom line is anybody that's a professional in the area of health can learn from going to my website, gordonresearch.com, and join FACT, F-A-C-T, at no charge. It's on the right-hand side of my website. And when they join, they can study with no cost how I treat MS or ALS or autism or breast cancer, and why I've never had anybody die of a heart attack, and why prostate cancer was one of the easiest diseases I've ever treated, even when you're in deep trouble, because it is so able to respond to what our approach is, which happens to be another topic we'll get into. But it is exciting to know that when you practice this kind of medicine, you can help people that otherwise are absolutely slated to die young. So we're talking now about what the right flora, and there's going to be improvements in this right now. I have everybody taking a probiotic, and there will be more and more research to identify for some people a probiotic that may be even better. But you need to understand that when you don't have any glutathione, you are not able to fight back against the free radicals. So we can use N-acetylcysteine and take lots more oral vitamin C because that's an electron donor, and this can help you fight back. But if we want to have no diabetes at all, read the blood sugar solution by Mark Hyman. Because when he gets you to take the right supplements, which look very much like what you will find Dr. Gordon taking if you go to my website, look for my personal protocol, but it looks daunting. Who could take that many pills? Well, not everybody needs to. If you have good genes and you're in perfect health and everybody in your family lives a long time, maybe you don't need to. But we find today more and more people who have been so exposed to these bad things in our water, food, and air that even if everybody in your family was living a long time, you are sick and you are having lots of problems. And it can be an overnight change in your genes. We call it epigenetic, as Randy Girdle at Duke University has published when he explained to people how agouti mice, nice, thin, lean, brown, healthy mice, all became yellow, obese, and diabetic when he exposed them to the bisphenol A that we got by drinking out of plastic bottles of water. The hardener in the plastic makes the bisphenol A, and it's also the liner in all the canned goods that we eat. So there's a tough problem here. So what I want everybody to understand is that we can use these probiotics, but you need to take care of them. They don't function well if you don't put some healthy fiber down there to feed them. But this gut is where most of the diseases that I'm fighting today, the degenerative diseases, whether you call me about arthritis, heart disease, or cancer, or Alzheimer's, I always have to bring up, gee, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to figure out which foods are safe for you to eat, because without a change in the diet, stopping eating much of what you're eating today, nobody's going to get the full benefit. And again, Mark Hyman's book gives you some pretty simple choices. It don't seem that daunting, but you'll be learning about triticale and amaranth and buckwheat, and you'll be learning about foods that you know nothing about today, whether it's papaya or rutabaga. The point is, if I move you from foods that you are eating every day and get you to really go clean and have no wheat, no dairy, and even get rid of what we call high glycemic foods that raise our blood sugar too much, because today the evidence is overwhelming that not only are we having weight problems, but if we stick the end of your finger and just get a drop of blood, which you can do legally for yourself, and get your blood sugar measured, if your blood sugar is over 80, and it is over 80, unfortunately, in over 90% of all people tested today, if it's over 80, you are already pre-diabetic, even if you have no weight problem, and you're not going to reach the 100 years of age feeling great that you should be able to do if we help you develop your own owner's manual, and that's what we're working on. So these are some of the things I've mentioned. The silver, and we really like the acidophilus called Chiodophilus 9. It's got 9 different strains, but there are many strains out there, some more expensive, some less. I'm just saying that without the fiber, we don't get the full bang for the buck with the probiotics that you select, because they need food to grow on. Now, we do know that if we have a negative attitude and we've thrown in the towel and we really would prefer to die because life seems to be too daunting and we really want out of here, that's going to really slow down my ability to help you in all of the areas that we can help. So I need to get this message across. Anybody with any health problem, we are actually taking people today out of hospice who have far advanced cancer. That, unfortunately, is experimental, and it's costing almost a little over $17,000. But we find that at any stage, while there's still hope. But the mind is so powerful, so let's look at where do we get the power. Well, as a net result of the new physics, where you learn about the God particle and the Higgs boson, it took some 10 billion and 30 years to prove this new physics. But this is one of the men behind it, and this gentleman is Michio Kaku, whose eyeballs you see in the slide. And he is an incredible, he's the Einstein of today, and he's written the theory of everything, and he's tied it all together with the superstring theory. And when you take that And here's another physicist trained at MIT, Claude Swanson. And his books, which you can buy, both books would be the size of a New York City telephone book. And they'll cost you about $54 if you buy both. But you will be so smart because you'll finally know how this magnetism and prayer and meditation and chi and tai chi and prana, how it all fits together. Because no one should have the right to tell you that there is no other treatment for your condition, because they can't know everything. Knowledge is doubling too fast. So if we apply this knowledge, and there's at least 1,200 references in these two books that you don't know about today, that if you got them, you would be really excited to understand how the theory of relativity, the quantum mechanics, and all of it ties into the power of positive thinking and magnetic healing and getting the toxins out. So the law of gravity, the law of energy comes into what we can observe. And we know that energy follows thought. That was the power of positive thinking. So cells communicate, and they communicate through electrons and photons. So people doing microelectric current are provably stopping you from going blind with macular degeneration or with any of the glaucoma. I mean, just simple things, because microelectric current is giving our body electrons. And that's an alternative to swallowing lots of vitamin C. But the vitamin C does things that the electrons from a microcurrent can't do. But the more I get this idea that energy healing is real, and that the sick cells are able to become healthy cells when we combine what I'm bringing to your attention, which is the multifactorial nature of illness. So wellness requires us to know that faith and health can go hand in hand. And I've already mentioned Rick Warren helped his 20,000 members lose over 260,000 pounds, and they did it through what you're going to call the Daniel Plan or community medicine. Well, instead of having to see a doctor one-on-one, I can see 100 of you at a time and have all of you simply speak to my assistant and get some preliminary tests done, which don't have to cost that much. I mean, we've done tests as simple as a hair mineral test for $100, and a computerized diet and a chemistry panel for $100. We've done tests for less than $200 that when you have them in your hand and you know what your fasting insulin and your fasting sugar are, and you start to know these things, I can help anybody implement the suggestions that are so well written in Mark Hyman's book, because it was his book that took these members to a new level of health, so they no longer were fighting the high blood pressure and no longer swallowing these stupid statins, which are going to give us an epidemic of Alzheimer's and dementia and confused people. Why do I say that? Well, these doctors that think they know what they're doing with heart disease know nothing. I've never had a patient die of a heart attack or major stroke if they're simply taking the BCI, Beyond Chelation Improved, 9 pills. How come? I'm so smart. Well, we spent a lot of money in the 1960s with Dr. Lester Morrison. We spent over $10 million figuring this all out, but nobody cares because they've all worshipped at the throne of attacking cholesterol. When they attack cholesterol and they lower your LDL, you stop the effective production of progesterone. So I can do your saliva test for only $100. I can measure a lot of hormones in your saliva. And if we find low levels in your saliva progesterone, we now tie that to a thing called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal. We find that this is why more and more people who have major surgery these days, after the surgery, they don't know who they are. It's becoming an epidemic, because your brain has got to have new cells made constantly. And if you play with your body, we all knew that when they were selling us the statins that we wouldn't make the natural steroid hormones that we need. And that's one reason they could suddenly sell us all the Viagra, because people weren't able to have normal intercourse without some assistance, because we've been playing with our body's building blocks. Cholesterol is a natural building block of every membrane of every cell in your body. And it's a key step to making hormones like testosterone and progesterone. So This is just to teach you that the Daniel Plan is something you want to learn more about, because we've got to find more pastors that will take on big pharma and the big food industry and tell the truth to the people in the church, so they will get books like Mark Hyman's book and start going down a new road of health. And as we start to realize that Norman Shealy has been a friend of mine for many years, top trained at Harvard as neurosurgeon, and one of the first to really embrace all of what we now call holistic medicine. In fact, he started the American Association of Holistic Medicine. So these are great people. And Bruce Lipton, his book, Spontaneous Evolution, will give you hope, so you won't even be worried about the fact that this is the year 2012 and December is coming up. There's so much knowledge in his book, Biology of Belief. So the power of our brain is incredible, but we still fight. Going back to my fight program, we still have this little issue of infections, hormones, heavy metals, etc. to talk about. So as we've gone from F, food, and F, focus, we're now over to infection. And I'm not going to take the time today to go into the depth, because I want to have this be the first in what's going to take, obviously, another program for us to get all this knowledge to you. But infections, I mentioned rapidly. According to Harvard Medical School, if we tested all of you, 96% of you would definitely show titers to an active viral infection. It's a retrovirus similar and related to herpes family called cytomegalic virus. But no doctors bother even talk about it because they don't have a cure for it, and therefore why talk about it? But we now know that it ties to hypertension and it lives in plaque in our arteries. So infections are now known to be tied to human cancer. And that's one of the reasons that there's this magical new approach that's being experimentally used at great cost of $17,000 that seems to be taking people with far advanced health problems and giving you the ability to lower that infection. And without spending that kind of money, we have doctors that I have in my FACT forum that have been trained by either Dr. Robert Rowan in Northern California or my friend in Carson City that is teaching this work. If the work is called oxidative medicine, and we use in this ozone and ultraviolet blood. So Dr. Frank Schallenberg and Dr. Rowan teach doctors how to lower infections, and infections are clearly tied to cancer, but actually cancer becomes a metabolic disease when you get into the big story that we're going to teach you, and that is one of the reasons that my FIGHT program has been in a modified form of it used by Dr. Kobayashi in Tokyo for 10 years on 10,000 people, and they did not develop the lump or bump we call clinical cancer, but all of us have cancer all the time. They simply kept their cancer in reasonable levels using essentially a form of my FIGHT program. So if we look at the viral cause for prostate cancer, and if we look at who all has cancer in America, 1 out of 3, and they're saying that it may soon overtake heart disease and become the leading cause of death in our country. So chemo and radiation are not the answer. They increase the likelihood that you'll really die of your cancer because they tend to kill the easy cells and leave the tough ones behind, and they take healthy cells and can actually make them start to become malignant cells. So cancer as a metabolic disease by Dr. Thomas N. Seyfried is a great way for you to get a book for about $125 from Amazon that will challenge whatever your oncologist is telling you, because this guy has got 20 years at Yale and 30 years at Boston College. He is an authority on the entire subject of neurosciences and an expert on brain cancer, and his book will blow the myth of chemo and radiation out of the water for all time, because he's picked up exactly what Dr. Otto Warburg got the Nobel Prize about, called his theory of cancer, which was that cancer only grows in a cell that's acid, that's not effectively converting glucose and oxygen into energy called ATP, and that these cells actually, therefore, are called anaerobic, and they're too acid, and they are where cancer starts. And he said that all of these cells have toxins in them, and that was way back in 1961. Today we have far many more of these toxins. This book is going to change the whole field of oncology because it has the audacity to print out some of the defects in today's chemo, which we now know that people receiving IV chemo can get very sick and lose their hair and vomit a lot because it's poisoning your body. But they have proof now that it apparently hardly ever poisons the tumor, because the tumor needed to have its membrane potential raised so that it has enough energy to take up the chemo. So you're killing your body's immune system and losing your hair for no benefit because your tumor isn't even getting the chemo. So there's reasons to learn about what's going on. So it's good when Harvard Medical School has this little thing saying 40% of cancers today are starting from factors that you can control, like the diet, the lack of exercise, overweight, alcohol, tobacco. So we can do more than our doctors can do for us. So this is putting you back in the position of power. So I'm trying to move things in the direction of wellness, community health, the Daniel Plan, but all of us have to take personal responsibility. We don't all want to spend a lot of money, so the $20 investment in the book, The Blood Glucose, is an easy way for you to do a few of those different questionnaires, and it may wake you up. And you might decide that you want to have a few tests done. I will do consultations on anybody, whether you do tests or not. But since I do charge $300 for consultation, and that is actually a bargain because it's cost me millions of dollars to learn what I've done, but if you do a few tests, you listen to me much more carefully, because with the tests I can start to interest you in things in your body that are suboptimal that you need to be addressing. So Dr. Otto Warburg, head of the Max Planck Institute, got a Nobel Prize. He was offered a second Nobel Prize, but because of things going on with Germany and Hitler, he wasn't allowed to receive the second Nobel Prize. I'm not going to go into any great detail on this today. I want to make sure that you understand that it is tied to pH, and I've got to get all of you to understand that drinking alkaline water sounds like an easy way to solve the problem, but it doesn't solve it, because the tumor itself has lost its electrical charge. It needs to be recharged, and the best trick I have right now, is the PEMF. And you can go to my website, GordonResearch.com, and on the left-hand side you can get my website called PEMFnow.com, and you can watch some really interesting information, because there's so much research and so many people getting out of wheelchairs, and Parkinson's responding, and autism starting to talk, and people with brain tumors doing better. But we actually do have now, there's an FDA-approved treatment in which you just put the electrons on the head and you walk around continuously with pads, putting electricity in the head. I like the magnet, as I see it, of being more basic. But separating the electricity from magnetism has been complicated since the time of Michael Faraday. And it requires the new physics to do that. So we just want to make all of you aware that if I drink alkaline water, it would only be between meals, because I need acid when I swallow my food, because I've got to break it down. And that's why I'm so upset about the purple pill that everybody's using. And I've got to get people to understand that the acidic environment is what is setting the stage for cancer to grow, and that we can change that when we supply enough electrons. And microcurrent can help, and so can low-level laser, but the magnet, and there will be more than one magnet today. We not only have the expensive magnet that doctors are spending $20,000, $30,000 on or more. The one for depression is $60,000, or some that works, but there are going to be some that we can use at home, and I do sleep on a magnetic pad between the upper and bottom mattress from magneticosleep.com in Nevada, and that is kind of heavy, 400 pounds I have 4 pads, each weigh 100 pounds, but I love those pads. But they are not doing for me all the things that I need because the Earth magnetic field is so weak. They help me to sleep on a magnetic pad, costing $3,600. But we actually can do dramatic things when we add magnetism to all the things we're covering today. And we now know that glucose deprivation, just changing your diet so you walk away from all sugar, that would be the last chapter in the book by Dr. Thomas Seaford on cancer as a metabolic disease. He has you go all the way over to ketogenic diet for a while. Now with Dr. Kobayashi, that I work with a lot in Tokyo, he is a molecular biologist, PhD, MD, pathologist, oncologist that was funded by the Sun Moon Church to follow 10,000 patients for many years. And we've known that he has found that his program, which is on my website, if you go to gordonresearch.com and put in the word cancer, you will see his name, Kobayashi, and you'll see an article, World Without Cancer, that he wrote. So you'll know that this is the facts. Cancer starts in the lower left-hand corner, and it goes and finally becomes a palpable, diagnosable lump or bump, but it actually takes over 7 years to get to that size. So during those 7 years, if I just get you to understand, we now have a blood test. Johnson & Johnson has one, and we have one that's even more sensitive out of Greece. For about $400, I can tell anybody if you have some cells in your bloodstream from your colon or your breast or your prostate that are actual cancer cells. Let me repeat what I just said. We no longer need to do a biopsy of your prostate. You can cancel all those biopsies. We no longer have to do all those complicated tests in order to cut your breast and open it because we're worried about breast cancer. What I'm saying is this. We actually have a blood test that is so sensitive it'll find 1 cancer cell out of 1 billion. And this test will allow us to tell you that, yes, it's true. You do have breast or prostate or colon cancer. Now, what are you going to do about it? Well, since it's covered by insurance, most of us are going to have the surgery done, we're going to have the radiation, and we're going to have the chemo until you read the facts and see how bad the outcome is. What is the 5-year survival published on chemo? 5-year survival, about 2.6%. That means 97% died. Now, I like to have better odds than that. And I can assure you that doctors that I work with that practice today's new medicine, where we actually can take, and for less than $5,000, we can actually tell you, again without having to do a biopsy, exactly which treatments, whether vitamin C or poly-MVA or taking higher dose of fish oil or what nutrients help kill your tumor. This is a new age we're announcing today, a whole new time. And it is extremely exciting to know that right now all the oncologists who are treating your loved ones are being told to fly by the pants. They open a cookbook and it says, for such and such a tumor, we're going to take and use this terrible, terrible toxic drug. And the results are abysmal. And then they throw a little radiation in, and X-rays always increase cancer. So there's no point in what they're doing. But you need to know that we have a laboratory in Greece that is able to actually test and tell you if there is one of the drugs out there. Some of these drugs may have some benefit. So we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. If we find one that works, and we can often combine that with something that we like that's good for your body, but don't ever get fooled. We do not cure cancer with chemo. 2.6% 5-year survival is a serious, serious commentary on how bad things are today. And try to understand the reason it looks so sad is because not only does the tumor not take up the chemo that's killing your immune system, which could have saved your life, and you're already poisoned. That's the reason you've got cancer. That's the whole point. If you send anybody listening to me, take 20 tubes of your blood, have it sent to Mount Sinai School, send them $4,900, they will tell you how many carcinogens, neurotoxins and endocrine disruptors are in your bloodstream right now. You don't have to wait. It's available right now. And I said, if you wonder if you have a cancer right now, you don't have to go through a lot of people poking, taking a piece of your prostate that just absolutely causes more trouble. Biopsies tend to spread cancer. So I'm announcing to you, there are brand new breakthroughs. We can take a blood test, send it to Greece, and it will come back and it will tell you if there are blood cells. Now let me tell you why this is a big story. Well, look at it this way. Right now, your loved ones who have prostate cancer are being told that the urologist says, I'm going to operate because you got here in time. And if I take your prostate out, you won't have any problem with prostate cancer. He is wrong 67% of the time, according to published data. What am I telling you? After they tell you that the disease is absolutely only in your prostate, we find, using the Johnson & Johnson test, we can actually find it in 67%, and I think it's higher with the more sensitive test in Greece. If it's in your bloodstream, then I take the blood from your arm. Obviously, it was not stuck in your prostate, and pulling out your prostate was making a joke of the problem. Cancer is a systemic disease, and operating on it cannot cure a systemic disease. You have to become healthy. To cure a systemic disease, you have to get an owner's manual. You have to learn why we're taking this time to build for you a Fight for Your Health program that changes these things. Because I assure you, we have data. Cancer Treatment Centers of America is run by a good friend of mine. They are provably having far better data, and I can do even better than that with the enlightened patient, but most of us still feel comfortable if we can use our insurance. So most of us jump first into the wrong therapy because they frighten us. They say, oh, yeah, oh, you've got cancer. We have to do something. We've got to operate in the morning. What complete fabricated lie. Any cancer we find in your body, guaranteed, has been there 7 years before they found the lump and bump. There is no rush. And since their track record is so lousy, nobody should be rushed in to having their chemoradiation surgery started immediately, because this is a disease that you've been fighting for 7 years and you've been losing the fight because you didn't learn how to lower the inflammation in your body, which is why I start with the book by Mark Hyman, which is a basic course that's now being taught at 20 medical schools. That whole Institute of Functional Medicine is being that accepted now by 20 medical schools, and eventually it'll be everywhere. And it happens that my program is extremely similar to what Dr. Hyman has written about in his book. It's just that I like oral chelation. He was smart enough not to get into oral chelation or zeolite or into the pulsed electromagnetic field or the use of ozone and ultraviolet, because he had to keep it something that could be accepted in the medical schools. And I just choose to go a little bit beyond that. But the basis for all that I do is in his book. He's the foundation, and I just choose to go beyond. So I wish to make it very clear that it's exciting that one of my doctor colleagues, Dr. Robert Rowan in Santa Rosa, California, has been absolutely left alone after the medical board had to deal with a complaint from a woman whose husband died because he stopped treatment. And Dr. Rowan tried to tell him, we have not treated you enough, and the poor guy ran out of money and he tried to refer him to another doctor. But the point was that the medical board said, well, who are you to be doing ozone? Nobody does ozone. So he had to meet with them. And when they saw he had 2 other colon cancer cases who are completely now cured of their colon cancer for all ostensible purposes, the tumor is gone because of the unique approach that Dr. Rowan and the enlightened doctors that I want to make you aware of with the various associations that I have are practicing. And oxidative therapy is one of them, because we provably can lower the titer to infectious hepatitis 98 or 99%, and even the titer to AIDS, using 5 or 6 of these unique intravenous interventions where we take some blood out of your arm and add some ozone and put it back. And while we're doing that, we like to take that blood and have it exposed to an ultraviolet lamp, which makes it even more powerful. So oxidative metabolism is what I'm teaching you there today, and we need you to know that vitamin C is both an antioxidant and an oxidant. Now wait a minute, the same thing can be both sides? Yes, it can. So in the lower doses, think of it as an antioxidant, but when we proved at NIH that if you put enough vitamin C in with any cancer, the cancer will absolutely start to die. The problem is that level is not easily achieved by mouth, and so often people are going now to have intravenous vitamin C, which is fine. I like it. It alone is not the whole answer to cancer. Unfortunately, you have to go deeper. There is no quick fix, no matter how much rich you have, or you have to do more. But that's why we're talking today, to teach you my FIGHT program. But it's really interesting to know that vitamin C is absolutely documented in these two books to which I've written the foreword for my friend, cardiologist, attorney, Tom Levy, who's so driven to find 1,200 references and explain them to you, so that when the doctor says nothing else can be done, you'll know that there's a panacea called vitamin C, and you'll do more with it. And it happens that beyond the kind of C that you can buy is the bioenergy C that I helped develop, because I knew Linus Pauling was right, but I was one of these people without stomach acid, and the vitamin C tore me up, so I needed to fix that problem, and it only took about 10 years, but we now have nice bottles of vitamin C that provably anybody can work slowly into, and you'll be on 1 teaspoon twice a day with life-extending benefits. So the level of vitamin C in your bloodstream at all times is totally tied to how long you get to live and how soon you die of anything, whether it's diabetes or accidents. So this is the vitamin C I'm talking about, and this is the stick that you buy, 50 sticks with that little green color on the end of the stick. That green color means you have no vitamin C in your urine, which means you have no electrons, and without electrons, you are not going to have a happy future, because the electrons can help you fight back against all the toxins. And so if I get you to understand that with that stick, you can buy any vitamin C you want from GNC or anybody else, I defy you to find one that will keep your urine in this color, because this is 100 milligrams of C, and I need your urine to have that much C morning, noon, and night, and particularly in the morning when you wake up, because I need 1 teaspoon of this to protect you twice a day. And if you really have a lot of cancer, you're going to have to take 4 teaspoons a day, which would be 16,000 milligrams of vitamin C. But these are things that fit in my program that anybody can do. In the leading cancer clinics, like the Reardon Clinic in Wichita, Kansas, that specializes in vitamin C treatment for cancer, they utilize the IV, but they know not everybody can be on IV every day of your life. So you need the right kind of oral to stay on, and we're doing a lot of this in Germany. The Dr. Dawes at the Bad Aibling Clinic in Clinic St. George in Bad Aibling, Germany uses that. So when we talk about alkalinizing, today we know there are better salts than Celtic salt. There are different things that we can do, and we can use vitamin K2 every day of your life to not have your arteries turn to calcium and keep your bones strong. And we can take the right kind of pomegranates are useful. If you get organic noni that's properly raised in Hawaii, it has some power in it that we lose when we have to go to the juices. And the juices have to be fermented. They lose the power. So there's a lot that we need to learn. And omega-3 is a major thing. We even have people today taking omega-3 and krill. And the green tea always has got wonderful documented benefits, and the broccoli is one of the key steps, along with all the greens from the ocean that I use in my organic green. So I want everybody to know that I have the oral chelator called Essential Daily Defense, and it has all of these powerful things. D-L-methionine is a chelator. It's in it. Beta-sitosterol, which also is in my Beyond Fiber, is in this. And in this formula, we actually have garlic, which is a chelator. And we have calcium EDTA, which is another chelator. And malic acid is another chelator. So I need to get people to understand that oral chelation is my life's work, but I've had to go beyond the strict definition of chelation and get into zeolite, which is a cation exchange method of detoxifying your body. And I've had to add the magnet so that the cells that have the poison will even have the energy to push the poisons out. So it's getting to be a little bit of a major problem for everybody to really feel good while we sit on a planet that's lost 95% of its magnetic field, so none of you are as fully charged as you could be. And if you went to a gym or a wellness center that had a PEMF device that could fully charge all of your cells, so your liver was pushing toxins out and your heart was stronger, you could be a leading athlete. And the day will come that all top athletes will be using PEMF as part of their approach. But you can't do an hour on a PEMF. It's such a unique form. The magnet induces cell exercise that's so unique that the cell pushes toxins out. So you have to learn how to take my power drink. Now, none of us can be healthy today without vitamin D, and a minimum dose for most adults is around 5,000, and that's in addition to taking vitamin K2. Now, when we start to get into genetics, it is such a powerful role because we now do, for $600, 92 genes. It takes about a month to get the report back. But when I get the report back, I change lives because all of a sudden you know why you have that cancer or that heart disease or that Alzheimer's or that autism, because it explains to you which particular genes had gotten turned off overnight, epigenetic change, according to Randy Churl at Duke, because of a toxin that you cannot avoid in our water, food, and air. After all, remember, all men once had 140 million sperm. Today they're lucky if they have 40 million. We've lost 100 million sperm. Why? Because we poisoned our bodies. And we can tell you the names of these. I keep rattling them off. It's depressing. They are neurotoxins and carcinogens and endocrine disruptors. These are things that are in every person tested. So epigenetic means overnight. So even if you tell me, gee, my family all lives to 100, I'm telling you, you haven't proved to me you're going to live to 100. If you do this gene test, the bad news is that diseases that never cropped up in your family line are going to show up in you, because nobody tested by EPA is free of bisphenol A that can't live on the planet without having dioxins and PCBs. And every mammal at the North Pole and the South Pole is loaded with polybrominated diphenyl ether. That was the flame retardant that we thought was a good idea. And it was. We didn't want children to burn up, so we treated their pajamas and finally their bed, and finally we released enough of this into the atmosphere that there's no place that you don't find it. We tie it to what goes on with your sperm and to other parts of your body. So genetics has a real power to help you see which of your important genes are not protecting you. Like the first patient that came to me with prostate cancer and diabetes and having hypertension and heart disease, it was because he had a complete deletion. He did not have any capacity to make glutathione at all. So we do have glutathione today. I have it as a spray, which is amazingly for mouth absorption, and we have it in spite of the fact that people once thought it only worked when you put it injectably, and we do have dramatic pictures by Dr. Perlmutter in Florida, a neurologist, that's on the website that you can watch, with a patient with Parkinson's getting up and walking down the hall, first time in years, as though nothing was wrong because he received the glutathione in the vein. Well, fortunately, we can get close to that today without having to get the vein, because the vein's expensive and those injections cost over $100. But we do have affordable mouth-absorbed spray glutathione and glutathione for absorption, because if I protect your entire intestine, you will have more health, because you have to always be fighting against the toxins and the free radicals. So Dr. Randy Churl at Duke is the one that proved that the agouti mice, which were always lean, brown, healthy mice, when they had their water warmed with a plastic container, that released bisphenol A, and we all have been drinking. We've been feeding our baby. We warmed the baby bottle in the microwave, and all of the offspring then became diabetic and yellow and obese because of an overnight change in the genes. So this very healthy brown, lean mice have had the changes that I fear are happening in all of America because we're all becoming obese and diabetic. So the methylation is why I have methylsulfonamethane and trimethylglycine, and I have that in my vitamin C, and I have everyone who chooses to listen use sublingual methyl B12 and sublingual methyl folic acid, because if it's not methylated due to the level of these toxins, you're not getting the full bang for the buck for the B12, and ignore a blood test by your doctor in B12. If they don't measure methylmalonic acid, they do not know whether or not you are having B12 deficiency. A blood test doesn't tell you if you need B12 or not. So just understand that we have to support your methylation, so put sublingual B12 under your tongue with sublingual folic acid. It's the methyl form. And if we look as we go into this whole process, we are able to make it clear that we have toxic metals that have changed our genes, and we know that we can show that methylation has been impaired, and methylation is how you get certain toxins out and how you make new cells that look like the last cells so you don't age. If you make new cells that are identical to the last one, then you're not going to age, and at age 77, I've been largely able to stop and even start reverse aging because I take these things. So you can fix some of these problems with vitamins and minerals. So don't get confused, because they try to always throw rocks at those of us who are buying supplements and tell us that we're crazy. The data is increasingly proving we are right. And you need to know that folic acid is such a huge story that even today I am taking, when I take my supplements, I take lithium, because lithium helps make folic acid work even more efficiently in the body. And folic acid is one of the reasons we have this epidemic of Alzheimer's, because it has so much to do with brain functioning. And you're going to learn that the folic acid in our regular supplement is not the methyl form, and therefore it's worthwhile buying a separate supplement, and that's why I mixed it with the sublingual B12, because sublingual B12 is absorbed, whereas the B12 was swallowed. So this product, beyond B12, added to the vitamin C, is giving you methylation support that we all really need. So the heavy metals, the hormones, and the toxins I'm going to save for a future webinar, and I really appreciate your interest and participation today. I think that the information we're supplying you will empower you to reach your maximum intended useful lifespan. And if you read the books that I mentioned at the beginning from the physicist, Dr. Kaku, The Future of Physics will explain to you why all of us are really destined to live to over 100 years of age, because for one thing, our cell phones are going to become so able to test us that we'll soon get $1,000 worth of tests done for $1 using our cell phone, and we won't wander around saying, gee, I'm pretty healthy. We'll know what our level of cancer, heart disease, our tendency toward Alzheimer's. We'll know what's going on, and we can take corrective action using the Fight 'em with Mice program. I look forward to the continuation next time to be announced. This is Dr. Gordon. Thank you for attending. You can take over and thank him for attending and tell him it'll be up on the website.